Warning: the following podcast contains graphic content that may be disturbing or triggering to some listeners. Discretion is advised. The Papa Tango Sierra Delta podcast is available free of charge thanks to the support of Cracked Armor.
Their mission is to raise awareness for PTSD, TBI, and mental health to support those who struggle. By creating an army of warriors who represent the gear, their hope is that it will send a message to others that they are not alone.
Go to crackedarmor.com, say hi to Mark Long, read about the story, and find some research information about PTSD. And if you can, look good while supporting Cracked Armor by buying some gear.
(10-9). Did you say Papa Tango Sierra Delta? 10-4.
There's so much left to do, so many things I wanna say, and I say, don't make the change. If it rains every single day, I'll fight to blow it all away.
This is episode 13 of the Papa Tango Sierra Delta podcast. My name is Larry Payton, and I have been diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress. Let's jump right into the intro with a bold statement. What will people say at your funeral? I know we're getting deep, but hold on a second. While that's marinating inside your head, and likely in your heart as well, I want you to listen to this message I received just yesterday. It's amazing. Hi, Larry. I wanted to reach out to thank you for putting yourself out there, for validating thousands of others who feel injured, for normalizing what feels so abnormal to so many. I'm a psychologist. I specialize in trauma. The majority of my work is with first responders. I'm also the spouse of a police officer. I live with the effects of trauma all day, every day. Certainly not in the way someone with PTSD, CPTSD, or even sub-threshold PTSD does, but I see the effects in the people I love and care for each day. Your podcast was recommended by a client, actually, and I've since recommended it to other clients and my partner. I have no doubt that this discussion and the vulnerability you and your guests show in each episode has already helped many responders. I'm so grateful that there is a podcast that is relevant, Canadian, relatable, and personal that I can give to my clients. So many of them struggle with feeling alone in the battle and fear of being stigmatized by their colleagues and management. Yours is a voice that echoes their own in so many ways. Take care. That's amazing. I mean, that's absolutely wow. I've become speechless with it, actually. I mean, this podcast was supposed to be done once a month. That's what I first thought of. Once a month. I don't think people are going to want to listen very often. I don't think I'm going to have enough people to speak with. And maybe I'd find it difficult listening to all the stories of trauma and shit that my brothers and sisters are going through. But here we are. And this podcast has obviously taken off. And I really appreciate that. Again, not because I give a shit that anyone knows my name, that anyone recognizes me, that anyone, whatever. I just give a shit that people who are struggling, like me, are getting some help from this, are finding at least that they're not alone. And when it's being recommended by psychologists, which this is the second one that I know of now, if you recall, the first one is in Northern Ontario, then that at least to me says a lot. Let's get back to the opening statement. What would people say at your funeral? Now, the reason I bring this up is because it's a personal annoyance how people are so quick to say shitty things about others, but not positive things. And so I struggle with why we have some sort of inherent discomfort to provide someone with a compliment. Now, I know times have changed. Certainly times have changed. You can't and you should not say things that were said in the past. I 100% get that. This is not what I'm saying. But I am saying, why is it we can't just speak well of other people, to actually look another person in the eyes and say, hey, I recognize you did this, And it was absolutely awesome. It was amazing. I'm impressed, and I just want to thank you for it. You say that to someone, I bet you they're going to go, what the fuck, are you okay? Because we're just not used to receiving compliments. And so we go on wondering, why is it we're so negative all the time? Why is it that, as I mentioned on a podcast weeks ago, that 80% of people's thoughts throughout a day are negative? I mean, doesn't it just make sense, actually? Really? We seem to focus so much on that. And if we're not being negative, it seems we're being quiet. Now, I don't mean with experiences. We're all comfortable to say, man, that meal was really good. We're all fine to say, you know what, that trip, that tour, that whatever was great. Really enjoyed it. But we're so fucking oddly uncomfortable with actually looking a person in the eyes that we respect, that we love, that we're grateful for, that we don't even frickin' know, but just actually saying something good about them. Not about their physical appearance, but about them. Something they've done. I mean, how many times do you go to the same coffee shop and they get to know you, or they take your order? And let's be honest, a lot of people's coffee orders can be kind of out of whack. If it takes you longer than 5 seconds to order your coffee, you're probably asking for a lot of shit to be done to your coffee. Fine, not a problem. I'm not judging. I'm just saying, if you're actually saying all those things about what you want for a coffee, and they do it all, why can't you just look at that barista and say, thank you? I appreciate that. I'll extrapolate this and let's go on further. I mean, I will tell people my thoughts, including the positive. I am known to be a person who says what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear. I'm totally fine with that. I'm okay with people who are like that with me. But that can also include a shit load of positive comments. And it's very interesting that if you pay someone a compliment about the task they've undertaken at their vocation. So again, let's go back to the coffee shop. That was great. I appreciate you taking care of that. Or even your psychologist. Hey, thanks for the session today. I found that the most common response is, well, I'm just doing my job. And to me, that's because of just this general discomfort with being complimented, because we don't do that. So why the fuck do we wait until someone's funeral to actually say good things about them? I mean, that's the same thing with obituaries too. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I'm waiting for an obituary that comes in and just says, so-and-so was an asshole. He really was. I mean, we love him, we miss him, but he was an asshole. Jokes aside, your funeral. Why is it that people at that point are comfortable to stand up and speak about you, but not say those things to you while you're alive? That to me is one of the most tragic flaws in our absolute being. And it's something we can fix. It's something we can do. We can change. So think about that. After all, we all seem to want to live forever. Well, most people want to live forever. I get it. Great. Awesome. I understand completely. But we all need to start looking more at quality than quantity. And that seems to be, for some odd reason, what we focus on. Quantity. The reality is, none of us are getting out of this alive. None of us. So why don't we start focusing on quality rather than quantity? Why don't we start focusing on treating others the way we'd like to be treated? And I mean talking to people and not being afraid or concerned or uncomfortable with providing positive feedback. So the next time you're at a restaurant and the waiter or waitress provides good customer service, ask to speak to the manager. I do it. It's actually fun. It's kind of fucking neat because, I mean, the poor fucker freaks out first. They kind of worry about, oh shit, what's going on? The manager comes over and usually the manager got this look on his face like, oh, here we go, another person bitching and complaining. When you actually say, hey, I just wanted to take a moment to let you know that this waiter or waitress did a fantastic job. I know most people complain about things and we very rarely pay out compliments, and I just wanted you to know as a manager, you've got a good employee there. And please pass along my thanks. You are going to see a different side completely of that person. Your waiter or waitress, when they return to the table, are going to be quite happy. You would have made their shift. So why don't we do that? After all, again, we should be focused more on adding life to our years instead of just years to our life. Let's focus more on quality than quantity. And make sure you tell someone what you really feel about them instead of waiting till the funeral. Reach out. Let people know. I'm sharing this with you today because of some of the fantastic messages I've received from listeners that have gotten me through tough times, that have gotten me through sad days. That when I feel with this podcast, I don't know, am I doing good? I kick the shit out of myself multiple times an hour. I'm tough on myself. I'm a keener. I push forward. I want to do the best. Yeah, I know. Sounded a lot like you now as well, right? Exactly. But it's the time that listeners have taken to just send me a quick message and just say how the podcast has affected them, how it's affected their loved one, how it's helping them understand themselves or other people better. It really helps me push forward because ultimately I'm talking a lot on here. But the only way I get to listen to each one of you is if you reach out. So, pay someone a compliment tomorrow. Do something. Make someone's day. You're going to feel better. You're going to know you did a good thing. It's going to put you in a better headspace. Let someone know you actually notice what they're doing and you appreciate it and you validate it. Let's not wait till we can't tell them to their face. Let's take a quick break.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into the podcast. If you have experience with post-traumatic stress and would like to join me for an episode, please reach out to me. You can contact me via direct message on Instagram, PTSD_podcast, or you can send me an email at Papa Tango Sierra Delta Podcast @gmail.com. Cheers.
This episode of the Papa Tango Sierra Delta podcast is brought to you thanks to the support and financial sponsorship of Cracked Armor. Go to crackedarmor.com, read the story, buy the gear, wear it, to send a message to others who are struggling that they're not alone.
Also, check out Willow Tree Farm, care of Jason Subkowicz, another member who is struggling with PTSD and who frequently updates his Instagram to share his story. You can follow him at jason.subkowicz. That's Jason.Sierra Oscar Bravo Kilo Oscar Whiskey India Charlie Zulu.
We are back from the break. Thank you very much for sticking around for the Papa Tango Sierra Delta podcast. I'd like to introduce the guest for this episode, Patrick Gordon. Tell us who Patrick Gordon is, man. Give us your background. Tell us about your journey.
I was born and raised in St. John, New Brunswick. My father was one of three boys. Their father was a World War II vet. He served in the invasion of Italy and made his way to France, Germany.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
He made it a long way. Yeah, wow.
He did, yeah. So growing up, my father, he was an alcoholic and he left me quite early in my life. But, I had those memories of conversations about my grandfather. And when he left me, that side of the family kind of got closed out. And I didn't really acknowledge a lot of it until later on in my life. I had a lot of childhood trauma as well. I had my first drink of alcohol when I was 3 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of insane. My father, like I said, he was an alcoholic. Before he left me, I remember it actually, for some reason, he poured a glass of Ryan Coke and left it on the counter, and I smashed it and ran outside of his apartment in my diaper.
Wow.
They found me sliding down a hill, yeah. So that was my first experience with alcohol. I had experienced some childhood trauma as a young child. My babysitter physically and mentally abused me when I was about 4 or 5 years old. Like I said, my dad left, so my mom was a single mom, trying to keep it together. So she, didn't really understand or maybe didn't realize what was happening. And they tried to hide it a lot. Anyway, eventually they found out. And they were never prosecuted either because the police said that it would be harder on me if we dragged the process out. And this was in the late 80s, early 90s.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I had that on my roster of things going forward in my life. I was an overweight child. I suffered from depression a lot. I didn't realize I was depressed until later on in life when I actually realized what depression was. I was constantly on my own. I remember times sitting in my closet and just fucking eating frosting because it made me feel okay.
Yep. Yeah.
My mom remarried. My stepdad adopted me when I was about 12 years old. I took his name, and things in my life really started to get a little bit more normal in my teenager lives as I had some stability. I had a mom and dad, and we were middle class. So I ended up attending high school at Simon's High School. Ended up leaving that school. I grew up, like I said, in the 90s. My brother, he is gay. So having that as well, going to a school, my nickname was the Fag's brother.
Wow. Fuck.
Yeah, really
brutal. Absolutely
can
brutal.
you imagine that happening nowadays? Like,
Not a
oh
chance.
my God.
Not a chance.
Not a chance.
No.
It would never happen. No. Yeah. So I was a really, really anxious child. I didn't have any self-confidence. And then in my teenage, I lost a bunch of weight. I started running, got into shape. I played football, but I just really never loved it because I was pegged as a fat kid. And I don't know, for some reason, it was just more of a torture than it was an enjoyment for me. And then as I got older and I kind of flourished into my body and became more confident with myself, I started playing again and I started building that confidence as a young man, continuously searching for a male role model. Like I said, my stepdad was awesome, but he came from a different world where it was about working and providing and not necessarily the other things that I guess I needed as a young man. So I was always searching for a role model, always searching for what I wanted to be. I never understood myself. And I had this, I really wanted to serve because of, like I said, hearing the stories of my grandfather back in the day. Back up a little bit. Like I said, I had a bunch of issues with the local high school that I went to just because of my situation and the world we lived in. So I transferred in my graduating year to St. John High School, and that's where I graduated and played football. I was captain of the football team. And like my last year of high school was like the varsity blues type of thing, and it was like I dated a beautiful girl, I was captain of the football team. Like everything seemed to fall into place for me later on in life versus what I felt like what I was going through as a kid. That being said, I graduated in 2002, so I seen the towers get hit in 2001 September.
Yep.
And like the rest of the world, I was like, holy shit. Okay, I guess this is where I'm going. I'm joining the fucking military, man. I'm gonna do my part. So I graduated in 2002 and I signed up for the military. It took me about a year and a half to get in through the paperwork, and I left for basic training in January 2004. I headed out to Esquimalt, BC, and I completed my basic training. When I signed up for the military, I walked into the recruiting office with a couple of my buddies, and I was like, I want to jump out of airplanes. And they're like, well, we got a job for you. Yeah. But the funny thing is, I ended up in the Armored Corps. I went away as an infantry in basic training, and my first time being a New Brunswick boy and first time being away from home without my family, I got really just scared and wanted to come back. And the instructors were like, well, man, you want to go back to New Brunswick? Just go Armored Corps. You'll be engaged down with tanks. And I was like, oh, shit, that sounds cool. So I changed my trade to the Armored Corps, finished my basic training, and then they shipped me to the Armored School in Gagetown, New Brunswick. So I was back home. Finished up my training in December 2004, and I made my way to my regiment, Lord Strathcona's Horse Royal Canadian, based out of Edmonton, Alberta, in December 2004. At this time, Canada was already involved in the Afghanistan war, but wasn't on a massive scale. And we didn't have heavy armor in the fight yet. And that hurt a lot, though, because you've seen other units around you deploying and we weren't going anywhere. And that's what I signed up to do. I signed up to fight. When are we deploying? Like, I was super fired up to get into the fight, and it didn't happen right away. And, looking back now, thankfully, it didn't happen right away.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Because, as a young man, I signed up just wishing and waiting and hoping to get into the fight. And now, as a man with the experience underneath my belt, I wish I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I love my time in the service and I love soldiering, and I wanted to be a career soldier. But, knowing what we know now about what that does to you as a human, I firmly believe we're not supposed to be that. We're not supposed to take lives. If we did, we would have claws and teeth. We'd be like a fucking bear or something. We wouldn't be human.
Yeah, I hear you, man. It's a good analogy. Yeah.
So, going to war and coming home, it really changed me. But the reason why I brought up my childhood trauma is because I went into this organization with bad coping skills, unhealthy coping skills, drinking, and I couldn't fucking wait to turn 19.
Yeah.
Just to party, because everybody around me, that's what they were using to get through life. And I was under the impression that in order for me to be a man, I needed to turn wrenches, crush beers, and stack women. And boy, was I wrong, right? Boy, was I fucking wrong. And that's only because you only know what you don't know. And I didn't have anybody telling me otherwise, man. So when I got into the military, I was like, oh, open arms to an organization that, work hard and play hard, right? That facilitated that cold beer at the end of a hard day.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of the guys that I served with and got in with and that were mentoring me and that were higher ranks had come from the old army, where it used to be drinking like it was just part of the job. Like you'd go to the field and put beer in your vehicle.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
so I got into this world and I'm like, holy shit, I love it. This is exactly where I want to be, right? I'm working hard, I'm crushing beers and partying, and at the beginning it's fun. At the beginning it's no harm, right? And then 2006 happened. Op Medusa, I believe it was the largest land operation outside of World War II, multinational land operation.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and they decided that we were not equipped enough and that they wanted tanks in theater of operations. Our unit, that's what we were, a heavy armored unit, and that's where our business was tanks. And prior to 2006, the Canadian government was talking about getting rid of them. So a lot of our tactics and the way we were changing was, a future without tanks. And then all of a sudden, holy shit, that's not happening. We got these old tanks and we're sending them to Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So my first deployment happened fast out of nowhere because I was not only qualified to drive the Leopard tank, I was also qualified the whole platform. And I was only a private. So they needed young people to be able to send over and also still train guys to get ready to go to Afghanistan at short notice. So I was on the first rotation of the tanks went into Afghanistan, but I wasn't there to fight. I was there as a TAV to take the tanks from Canada to Afghanistan, set them up for the squadron that was coming in to take them over, which was B Squadron. So that was my first deployment experience, leaving the country with the military. And man, it was wild. It was incredible. Like I got on an Antonov in Edmonton, Alberta, which is the biggest plane in the world. And again, being an East Coaster, I was 24 years old by myself. Oh, sorry, one other guy who was a corporal and I was a private. The two of us heading to Afghanistan, escorting these tanks. We left Alberta, we flew into Gander, Newfoundland, gassed up, and then we believe we went into Heathrow, from Heathrow to Bulgaria, flew across the Himalayas, which were incredible, into this Kazakhstan, and to some secret American base where we unloaded all the tanks, and they flew them in for us one by one over a period of a few weeks. Then we got them ready, and while I was in Afghanistan in 2006, I run into a friend of mine, Sean Chapman, who I did course with, and he was on Camp CAF, and he had just struck an IED, and he was all fucked up, his back and his neck. And, I didn't understand the scope of the war at this time because I wasn't fighting. I was just there to deliver the vehicles. Yeah. And another friend of mine, Mark Wilson, who I did basic with, and then he got recourse and then did basic, but then met us in Gagetown on our trades course. And he ended up going to RCD, which is one of the other armor regiments, Royal Canadian Dragoons. And I'm sitting there talking to Sean, who was on course with us as well. And I was like, hey, where's Mark? And he looked at me, and I still remember it. And he's like, he's gone, man.
Holy fuck.
And I couldn't believe it. I was like, holy fuck, what do you mean he's gone?
Yeah.
Mark was in a Nyala armored vehicle, and they drove over an IED, and a piece of shrapnel punched through, and it hit him in the leg and the femoral, and he bled to death.
Wow.
And it was at that moment, man, where I realized, holy fuck, this is real.
It's a real awakening moment, brother.
Oh, nothing could have prepared me for that. You do briefings and you talk to guys. You talk to guys that deployed before, and it's just like, it was crazy. I didn't even know how to process it anyway. Once I got this information, like, my whole life had changed. The guy I was working for on that had noticed a significant difference in me. And he was like, are you all right? And he didn't realize the information that I received. And I was like, yeah, I'm good. After that experience, they sent us home, and my contract was due at the end of this year, 2006. And had I not signed it, then I'd be done, right? The military it was over for me going in 2007. I come home and I was done with the military. I got back. I was over in September. I got back mid-October. It was a little over a month or something like that. I was away 6 weeks, and I was like, "That's it. I'm like, let my contract expire. I'm not doing this. No fucking way."
Yeah.
I'm in Alberta. This is during the oil boom. You know what I mean? Like, I'll get out and get a job instantly and make way more money and not have to fucking bury my friends. And then Christmas hit, and that was it. I was supposed to go into the reserves in Edmonton, and I kept all my kit, and then I wasn't supposed to return back to the regiment. And that was it. It was done. Go on Christmas leave and never come back. And then over my leave, I was like, I don't know. I just had an epiphany where I was like, I can't leave this. This is my home. This is where I belong. And I went into the unit and there was nobody there because everybody was on Christmas. I run into one warrant that was on duty, and I told him the situation, and he got the chief clerk on the phone right away, got him in, got contracts done up for us, because if not, January 1st, I would have been done, right?
Yeah.
So we got this boom contract, and I managed to stay in the military and not leave. But I really contemplated at those few months in between coming home from Afghanistan and my contract expiring, I didn't know how to deal with it. And then I decided that this is the world that you accepted when you signed the dotted line. This is what you have to be good with. You have to be good with the fact that you may not come home, or your buddies may not come home.
Yeah.
And you have to accept the fact that we're being sent there because it needs to be done, or we wouldn't be going there.
Difficult, though. Very, very difficult. I mean,
very difficult. So, I came home, and in 2007, I, decided this was it. This is where I'm staying in the military. And then I got loaded on to the following B squadron, which would have been the first of 2008. I think we were leaving in March or April. And I was set to deploy as my sergeant major's gunner, which I was super stoked up about this. My sergeant major was an old British guy who served in the British military and fought in fucking Desert Storm and actually had like confirmed kills with a tank, a Challenger tank. So, you're like, okay, this guy's battle tested. I'm fired up.
Damn.
Like, I feel like, yeah, right? So
Yeah.
you're like, deadly. So I start training for 2008, and we come into summer leave, and we're supposed to go on a big exercise in September. And then we're supposed to head to Germany because Canada's like, okay, these tanks aren't working out for us. We actually need to put, the way our government works, right? Let it fucking fail until it fails and then do something about it. So then, yeah, right? So
I don't know what you're talking about, Patrick. What do you mean?
Yeah, weird, right? So, then all of a sudden we're getting Leopard 2s. At this point in time, the enemy had figured out, hey, they're bringing in bigger vehicles into the fight, so we're going to make bigger IEDs. And so they went out and found the Leopard 2 A6M, which was, at this time, a really, really, really tough piece of machinery that was proven and designed to take blasts. And that's what our biggest threat was in theater, was the IED. So thankfully, somebody somewhere decided, hey, we're going to put some money into some soldiers' lives. We're supposed to go to Germany and do cross training on the tanks later on that year. So I went home on I went home on summer leave that year, and I got drunk with my girlfriend at the time. And anyway, I had an episode, and I grabbed a glass and I squeezed it, and it broke and went through my hand. And it severed my right hand, the second finger in the tendon, severed it. So got rushed to the hospital. They did surgery, opened my hand up, reattached the tendon. I did have a full recovery. My hand's great now, but, I was going into this position as, it's a senior position. You're the sergeant major's gunner, right? There's a lot of responsibilities on your back going in with it. And I wasn't even a corporal at this time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn.
So I was one of those guys in the military that it wasn't hard for me. Okay. I figured out really fast the military was easy. And all you had to do was show up at the right place at the right time with the right shit on. You can't go wrong. So anything above that, you were considered switched on, right? So
yeah, there you go.
To me, it was fucking easy. My whole career, I continuously got put into positions that were well above my rank or my experience. But unfortunately, I came back after leave with this cast on my hand. And to say the least, the sergeant major was not fucking happy. He loved a 4-letter C word, and he loved to call me it.
See you next Tuesday.
Yeah. As of right then, I was off the tour. In all honesty, it was like I got injured at the NFL Combine. You know what I mean? Like I was on my way to get drafted and go to the show, and I got injured. I was devastated, man. So I was like, no, this is just another time in my life where I faced adversity. It's like, let's go. So I started going off with rehab. I drive around with a squishy ball in my truck anytime I got my truck, and I would just squeeze it as many times as I could, do my own rehab in between the other scheduled rehab. And then my hand, it got better fast. The sergeant major had replaced me with somebody else, which was all right because it opened up for me to get another position, and they needed a loader in a Bravo call sign. In the tank troop, a Bravo is a sergeant. It goes troop leader, which is an officer, and then you have an Alpha Bravo Charlie, and your Alpha is a warrant, Bravo is a sergeant, and your Charlie is a master corporal for your tank commanders. And usually your Bravo is sergeant, leads everywhere because he's the one with most experience, and you're not going to have your officer or your warrant officer lead because they're your two commanders, right?
Right.
So your sergeant leads everywhere. So he's usually someone who's switched on, and the loader is usually somebody who is a senior corporal, if not a master corporal, to assist in this. So I got that job when I got back, and I was like, honestly, the commander that I feel bad for saying this right now because maybe he might listen, and I love him to death, and he totally changed my mind when we got into the theater of operations. But when I found out he was my commander, I was like, his name's Brad Smith, and fuck, I love him so much. He's deadly. I was like, no, I'm not going to that guy's calls. Not a fucking chance. He's going to get me killed. That's instantly what I said. And like I said, I feel so bad for thinking that because Brad was the best leader and the best commander. And I was blessed to have him and honored to serve by him. But going into it, I didn't think that. And so I got put into the meat grinder really fast. And it was at the end of our training for that particular exercise in September, October, early November. So I got the tick in the box. I got enough training in that position that they were like, well, guess what? You're going overseas at that position. I was like, okay. And then we went to Germany. We trained as a crew. Brad was really good at team building and bringing us in as a crew of 4 and bonding. And then we deployed. And man, it was 7 months of hell.
Yeah. Fuck.
It was 7 months of hell, man. We got there end of February, early March. You know, you do a handover with the other squadron that's there. This is your tank. This is your bunk. And the funny thing is, I'm just going to step out of this for a second, is that I'm on Team Canada right now, Invictus. And I walked into my training camp a few months ago, and I looked a guy in the face, and I was like, holy shit, that guy looks familiar. And I couldn't peg where I knew him. And then about 4 or 5 days into training camp, I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, holy shit, he's the guy I did the handover with in 2008.
Wow.
I fucking slept in this guy's bunk for 7 months after he left it. His last name is Dell. I couldn't believe it. So anyway, we get there in Afghanistan, and I'm doing this handover with this guy. And okay, this is all your shit. Okay, roger that. Thank you. Boom. You go out into the AO area of operations, and you kind of do a familiar of the land and what the stuff we're going to be working in. And then they take off, and now it's like, okay, we're in Afghanistan. This is it. And, you know, for the first 2 months, I believe it was, until I went on HLTA, it wasn't that crazy. We did instantly, within the first week, I was on an overnight operations, fucking driving through the desert at night, doing crazy shit that I was just like looking at things that you've never seen before. You know what I mean? Being a New Brunswick boy.
Hell yeah.
Like, I couldn't even believe what I was seeing, to be honest with you. Like, I was just like, I felt like I was in Star Wars, and this was Tatooine, and I'm like, what the fuck?
That's cool. Yeah. That's a great way to explain it. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it, man. So we're driving around the country and doing operations. And the way it was set up in our squadron was we had 3 troops. Usually there's 4 troops per squadron of tanks, and each troop has 4 tanks, Our 4th troop was a reserve troop that was left back in Canada, as if anybody went down, then they would replace them. So we had 1, 2, and 3. And 1 troop would be on operations. Another troop would be on QRF, which is quick reaction force. And another troop would be on camp security. And usually it was a week at a time you would rotate, which was awesome. Then you didn't get fucking bored. But the thing was, if you were on operations, chances are your operations are usually more than it's either a day or you're gone for a month.
Yeah.
One or the other.
Yeah.
So, and our troop, we were 3 troop, and we had, if anyone's listened to this, I serve with, I love you, but we had, I would say, the most competent troop when it came to our leadership. Either that or our leadership didn't like our fucking officer and our warrant, because they sent us out on everything. Like, we were out on fucking everything. So a lot of times we go out on operations and we'd be gone for a while, and we'd miss the rotation, come back, and then just go back on operations again, which was all right because it was fun. I got to see a lot of Afghanistan. I got to do a lot of cool shit. But like I said, the first few months I was like, what is this all about? You know what I mean? Like, what's this so bad? It's the end of the winter. If anybody who's listening to this knows about the fighting season in Afghanistan, it's real. There's a real fighting season.
Wow.
And it changed instantly. It was incredible. Like, I went on leave, I think it's sometime in April. I can't really 100% remember. And then I came back, and it was like a fucking light switch. And after that point, we couldn't leave the camp without getting shot at, without fucking RPGs coming after us. Constant. Anytime you'd stop for 5 minutes or more, it would be snipers, fucking RPGs, mortars. And a lot of times you didn't even know where it was coming from unless you seen a smoke trail.
Jesus.
Yeah. So you're just fucking... Yeah, it was wonderful. And then you were always worried that the ground was going to come alive and eat you.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I mean by a fucking IED.
IEDs, yeah.
Right?
That had to be terrifying, man. Yeah, just that had to be fucking terrifying.
Fucking terrifying, man. I swear to God, I have PTSD just from driving around with my asshole so puckered tight because I was in a tank. And tanks led everywhere because we were tanks. And they put on our tanks, we would drive around with the traditional mine rollers that were used in traditional warfare for clearing minefields. Drive through a minefield, they blow up, boom, and they fall back down. Conventional warfare. And we were using them in an unconventional way. This fucking coin, they called it, counterinsurgency, driving around with mine rollers, hitting fucking bombs and hoping that the bomb isn't big enough to really fuck us up.
Wow.
I was part of what we called a route clearance package on multiple operations, where it was us paired with engineer assets. They were called Buffaloes and Huskies, and they had ground penetrating radar. It looked like a farmer vehicle with one human in it. It would drive in front of us, and it would essentially sniff the ground, and it would spray paint anytime it found any anomalies. And then there was this massive fucking vehicle. It looked like a bus that was jacked up with a claw and had like 10 or 12 engineers in it. And then it would either come up and fucking stick its arm out and try to dig it up and hope it didn't blow up and destroy the arm, or they would send the engineers to poke it and trying to get it out, or we would drive over it with the vehicle, the tank, and hope that it would blow up.
Yeah.
So anytime you're traveling on any roads that weren't proven, it was engineers and then tanks and then our labs behind us. Which is, to me, like, hey, roger that. I understood my position. I'm not crying about what I had to do. It saved lives. We got fucking labs with section infantry that if they do hit an IED, it's going to kill a lot of people, and they're not designed for that. So make no mistake, I'm not complaining about what I did. I fucking accepted my job and I did it to the best of my ability. But it was fucking scary.
Yeah.
And then I remember we were on this one operation and our job was to clear a road. It was called Route Fosters. And this is when the whole fucking thing changed for me. Our job was to clear this road so they could pave it because they wanted to create outposts all along the river to disrupt the flow of the Taliban's ammunition and goods and stuff by continuously having either a platoon of infantry paired with a platoon of ANA at these little, they called them cops. Anyway, the names changed throughout the war, platoon houses, different things. So our goal was to clear up to a certain point of this road, and then the construction engineers were to come in behind us, pave it, and then we would push a little further, they pave it, push a little further, pave it. This road was considered, at the time, the most dangerous road in the world outside of one other road in Iraq.
Wow. Jesus.
And yeah, it was pretty crazy. So what would happen is that we would clear up to a certain point, and the labs would ping pong back and forth. They would drive, hit a certain spot, turn around, drive back and forth until they could pave so that nobody would run out and put an IED. And they determined that all the Taliban needed was 30 seconds to get an IED in the ground. And sure as shit, they proved it on that operation because the labs got blown the fuck up. After we cleared the road, they would get blown up. So then we would push a little further and another vehicle would get blown up.
Holy fuck.
I think we were out on this one particular operation for about a month. And I remember we leaguered up on the road and we started off on our day. It was fucking 05, fucking dark, whatever it was. And you're right groggy because you never sleep. You're fucking one eye open the whole night and fucking, you're up doing shift and scanning arcs. And like at night, it's real because you can't see. So you're like, I know I could sneak up on us and start slitting throats. What? Hope, we're all just praying that we didn't have any really good fucking fighters out there, right?
Yep, makes sense.
We relied a lot on our technology. We relied on night vision. We relied on thermal. We relied on drones. We relied on the artillery firing fucking a loom over top of us, and then the Taliban thinking that it was magic and scaring them away. So there's a lot of things that we relied on that kept them away at night. But I remember waking up in the morning of that particular operation, and we just kicking off on the go, start clearing one section of the road, and I don't know, maybe not 30 minutes into the day, that vehicle I was telling you about with the single individual in it.
Yeah.
I'm just in my hatch watching.
Oh shit!
Like I can't even explain to you what I seen. It was like a little miniature mushroom cloud, and the heat that hit me, that it blew my face back, and to see this vehicle go flying in the air. I mean, fucking tires went 100 feet, fucking left, right, over, top, parts, smoke, fire, and then dirt just raining down on top of me and my crew. And all I'm thinking is this guy there's nothing left of this person.
Yeah.
And then, instantly, as soon as you hit an IED, you automatically go, we're going to get an ambush. So you go through your SOPs and ensuring that prepare for the ambush. And it's like, all you want to do is get out of your vehicle and run towards this and pray that this human is okay.
Yeah. Fuck.
And then, yeah. So you're like, oh my fuck. And then a few minutes later, he fucking pushes I remember it like it was yesterday. He just fucking punches the hatch open on the top and sticks his fucking thumb out. And we're all just like, yeah! You know what I
Holy
mean? Like,
Jesus.
yeah, he's alive.
Wow.
Probably just fucked right up, but like alive, right? And these vehicles were designed to get blown up. Like they had a massive V-shaped hull so that the explosion would be dispersed. Not exactly sure the specs on them, but I'm sure there's multiple inches of armor underneath. So, I seen this, and then the rest of the operation was just like that. Like you'd be cruising along, boom.
Holy Jesus.
Cruising along, boom. Like we didn't even get attacked, I don't think, on that operation once. It was bomb after bomb after bomb. I think I couldn't even tell you how many vehicles we lost on that particular operation. And we lost a couple our soldiers, and then we lost a fucking mechanic, man. Listen to this shit. They were hauling, so we would always have an ARV with us, a recovery vehicle for the tanks, right? It's a massive tank without a turret.
Yep.
It has a big boom on it.
Yep.
And they go with us everywhere because if we get stuck, we can't get out. So on this operation, that one of the vehicles that got hit was the Buffalo I was telling you about. It looks like a bus that's jacked up with a claw. So it did get blown. I seen that too. Fucking got blown up right in front of me. Just everybody was okay. But the vehicle was fucked. So they're trying to how do we get this back to camp? So the ARV was like, fuck it, I'll haul it with us as we drive. So as he's hauling this fucking thing, one of the maintenance guys is on the back deck of it, making sure it's okay. It's rolling. We're good. The fucking vehicle, as it's hauling, digs into the ground, hits an IED, blows up, and fucking throws the guy off the back deck of the tank, flying into the fucking on the ground. Like something out of a fucking movie.
Jesus Christ, man.
Like relentless, but like think about like the morale, right? Like all we're trying to do is pave this fucking road.
I can't fathom it.
No, it was just wild, man. So then you go back to camp and you joke about it with the guys. When I say guys, general term, guys, troops, humans, people, guys and girls.
Yep.
So yeah, you go back to the Massengar where our main camp was, or our FOB, and the tanks were stationed out of, and you'd go, all right, operations is done, and you get a break, and you're on security or you're on QRF, and then you're just like, holy fuck, what did I just go through? You didn't really process it, but after, I'm going to say something, and I don't think I've ever said this to anyone ever, and I can't believe I'm going to say it on a fucking podcast, but there was a time on my tour, man, where I got to a point where I was so fucking scared. I was in the gym. And when I say gym, it was literally mod tent. It was some weights. And I was up in the gym in Massengar, and I picked up a 45-pound plate, and I was putting it on the bench. I was going to do bench press. And I held it in my hand. And I stopped with the 45, and it was an iron one. And I'm standing there holding it. And if anyone knows what I'm talking about, the grips, you know what I mean? How it has a lip on it.
Yep.
And you're holding it. And I didn't put it on the bar. I just stood there. And then I looked down at my foot. And then I looked back at the weight. And I looked at my foot.
Yeah.
And I looked at the weight. And I looked at the foot. I was like, I just smashed my fucking foot, and I'll go home. And then it'll be over.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm saying this is, man, because you have to understand the level of fear and uncertainty that this war had brought on. I mean, you're not even fighting a fucking uniformed army. You don't even know who the fucking bad guys are. And all the while, we're trying to win the hearts and minds.
Unreal.
It's an impossible task.
Yep.
I mean, obviously I didn't do it, but I thought about it, and that's how fucking, anybody that sits here and tells you about their time in the service and that they served in the war and they're like, I wasn't scared, they're fucking lying, man.
Absolutely.
They're not being honest with us. They're fucking lying.
Could not agree more.
They're not being honest with themselves. Like I knew people that got off the plane, seen tracer fucking bullets, and then get back on the plane and go home.
Yeah, I believe it.
They're like, I didn't sign up for that. I didn't sign up for that.
Yeah, right.
So, and this what this tour was. I was there for 7 months, and it was nonstop fighting. And then in June, we lost our warrant officer, Lee Taylor. We lost him to something completely different. He ended up going home with cancer.
Oh, wow.
Like I looked at this guy not only as a leader, but I looked at him like a father figure, because he was the first man I'd met in the military that gave a shit about people in a way that I'd never seen before. He cared about his men. Like, oh my God, man, he would kill himself for his men. Instant, like it wouldn't even be a question. And he talked to us like we were humans, which, I understand the military, we require the collective, but sometimes when somebody makes you an individual in a world where it feels nice, right?
Absolutely, man.
I love this man. And then he left and didn't come home. So that really fucked with the morale of our troop. But
long story short, he ended up beating cancer, and then I went back overseas with him again. So I'll get into that afterwards. But yeah, he left in June, I think it was, and didn't come home. And our tour ended in September. So that really sucked to add to the suck. And fast forward to the end of the tour, September, I was telling you how we were trying to pave this road, Roos Foster, so we could resupply these OPs, these outposts. Well, it never got done, obviously. They abandoned the mission. And what we would do instead is that they couldn't airdrop, because anytime they would drop any type of food and supplies, it'd fall off course in the Taliban. And because the terrain was so fucking hard to navigate, the Taliban would get it before, or the locals before our guys would. So, they figured that it was a lost cause to drop stuff out of a plane. So there was a river right next to this road, the Argadab River. And in the summertime, there was no water in it. So it was like a highway.
Right.
So we decided that we were going to use the river as a highway to drive down and then breach into the banks, because you could see each outpost. Breach in, resupply, using engineer assets. We have an engineer vehicle called a Badger. Again, it's a tank with a massive boom and a crane and a bucket. And then it also has a big dozer on the front of it. So it's pretty deadly. And it can make an embankment pretty accessible really fast. So we would breach into these outposts using our engineer assets and the tanks, go in, resupply, and then back out in the river and continue on to the next outpost. And I believe there's 4 or 5 outposts. And then it would almost come into a bit of a peak into a peninsula. And then the river met another river. And then there was the Red Desert. So you could essentially go down one river and back up the other. But the other one was much harder to navigate through. It was a lot softer sand. Anyway, so we would go down and breach these, and we would do it usually once a month after we decided that they couldn't pave the road. So 9 days before we're going home, September 1st, the night before it comes down, we're running one more resupply. And all of us are like, are you fucking kidding me? You know what I mean?
Yep.
9 days before we're going home. And when I say we ran the gauntlet in the river, it was running the gauntlet because the Taliban knew what we did. So they would go out there and they would plant IEDs and mines randomly throughout the river. Not to mention, you're in a position, there's 2 elevated positions on either side of you. So we would continuously get under contact the whole way down. Just fucking shoot, and we would just drive. And if it wasn't, if it was just pot shots and it wasn't major engagements, we would just put your heads down and keep going. But a lot of times it would be full-blown mortar, RPG, heavy machine gun fire, and then you'd have to engage the enemy because we'd have soft shell vehicles with us, like the ANA would drive around in fucking Ford Rangers.
Wow.
With 50 cals mounted to them. Just
Jesus.
Yeah, we were the head element, so we would, have to clean that up so that they wouldn't end up getting picked off. So you'd go down, you'd run the gauntlet, you'd be under contact sometimes the entire fucking ride down. You get there, you breach in, you resupply, and then if we were like one time we did it in one day. We went down, boom, resupplied. We actually got accommodation out of it. It was pretty cool from the CDS because we led all the way down, fucking resupplied, breached all in, and made it all the way back in one day. And usually we'd have to spend the night.
That's amazing, man. Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool this one time. So anyway, 9 days before we're going home, they send us down the river. And we're all just like, fuck me. You know what I mean? Like, come on. Come on. So we go down, we resupply, and we're coming home. And we get to the last outpost, and my commander says to me, why don't you, my gunner was named Jeremy. He's like, why don't you and Jeremy trade? He'll load a new gun. You get some trigger time. You get to see some of the country before. This is probably going to be our last operation. And I was like, fuck, all right, cool, let's do it. And then just before we stepped off, I don't know why, but I was like, no. And Jeremy's taller than me. I'm about 6 foot. Jeremy was like 6'2". I was like, no. And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, no, man, honestly, we're going home. And if something happens and we die or one of us dies and we're not where we're fucking supposed to be, I am not going to be okay with that. Right? Like, no, let's just not do that. Let's just finish this and go home. We agreed that we were all going to stay in our positions and then continue on. So we take off, and we were one of the lead vehicles. We weren't the lead vehicle. I think we were second or third in the order of march with our rollers. So we take off, and we're skirting the embankment, trying to find a nice entry point. And the first tank enters into the riverbed, and it's fucking like just horrible terrain, man. Super, super beach sand, soft. Yeah, it's great for the track vehicles, but like we got, like I said, it was like a 70 vehicle convoy and a ton of fucking ANA vehicles. And I know that being the tanker, we're going to be the ones pulling them all out. We'll be here all fucking day. And I said to my sergeant, I said, hey, Sarge, this is a shit entry point. Like, I bet we could find something a little better, a little further ahead. He's like, yeah, I agree with you. He's like, back us up. I'm going to get on the radio, tell them what we're doing. I was like, roger that. So in Afghanistan, if you drive on something and it didn't go boom, you fucking consider it proven. And you try to stay on it if you haven't left your, hasn't left your visibility. So I get out of my loader's hatch and I, try to maintain a low silhouette, and I'm laying down on the back of the vehicle or on the turret and guiding my driver to stay in the tracks. And I say, driver prepare to reverse, driver reverse. We start backing up, touch right, touch left, and then boom.
Wow. Fuck.
Just black and smoke. I thought we got hit with an RPG because we were moving backwards very slow. Would have made us on the edge of a riverbank. It would have made it an easy fucking target. I thought we got hit with an RPG. I woke up on the bottom of the turret down inside the tank. It blew my armored vest completely off of me. My ears were like just ringing. I could hear in the radio just faint, like Tango 23 Bravo, Tango 23 Bravo. That was my call sign. And I remember like, what the fuck just happened? In the smoke and the smell of burning. The first thing I thought about was, holy fuck, if the guy's all right. I looked over and I was like, Jeremy, screaming at Jeremy, and he was fucked up. But out of all of us, Jeremy had suffered the least amount of, I guess, impact because he was inside of the tank in the driver's hole. My commander had just put his head down, and he, very good chance, could have taken his head off had he not, because the blast was on that side of the vehicle. My driver, I started screaming. He was unconscious, trying to get his attention. And what had happened was the lead vehicle drove over it, and then we drove over it and stopped. And it was in between the rollers in the tank. And when we backed up, it was either a crush plate, they believed, where the metal would crush and go down and then make contact and ignite, and then send the signal to whatever your battery and fire, or it was a remote detonation.
Jesus.
So when we started to back up, my mind was it was a remote, and they thought, well, oh shit, we're not going to be able to hit hit it now, hit it. And they were probably waiting for a softer skinned vehicle, waiting for a LAV or one of the other A&A vehicles. But when we backed up, boom, fuck, take what they can get. Each roller on the tank weighs 5 tons. It took the right roller and ripped it off the vehicle and sent it 50 feet over top of my vehicle and behind us, and almost hit another vehicle.
Jesus.
It left a crater in the ground the size big enough to park a Volkswagen Beetle and bury it.
Holy fuck.
The engineers that came up and cleared it said that they believed that it was 3 jugs in a cooking pot. So if any of my veterans out there know exactly what that means. And they would use HME, which is like a mixture of diesel and fertilizer and highly explosive shit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, boom. We managed to get the vehicle. My driver was fucked up. We didn't get medevac. We should have been medevac. We weren't medevac. My driver, his brain was bleeding. I didn't know, but I broke my neck, and I had herniated multiple discs, and I had a traumatic brain injury. We managed to get the vehicle sorted out in a way where it was operational to move. The lead vehicle that was ahead of us, 13 seconds later, hit a fucking IED.
Jesus.
It became a mobility kill. The commander in charge was like, we were fucked up. And he ordered us to put the mine rollers on our vehicle and take the lead. The battle captain told the OC at the time, who was a major, that wasn't happening. The battle captain was an amazing fucking individual and was like, that's not happening. Those men and women, or men in that fucking vehicle, are not combat effective. And the OC flipped out at him anyway. And we ended up, they didn't put us in the beginning. We ended up, I think it was 3 or 4 in the order of march. They brought us, kept us up there. And the battle captain actually took the lead. He's like, fuck this, I'll take it. He was a captain, and he was like, no, I'll lead. We'll put the rollers on one of the vehicles. Or anyway, they ended up sorting it out. We didn't end up taking the lead. So, but that was like terrifying because like I at that time I knew in my head I didn't know I was fucked up. I was fucked up. Like something had happened and I didn't understand what inside of my mind.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
So we continued on, and then we got fucking ambushed. So they got this other vehicle. sorted out that they were able to tow it. They talked about blowing it up in place. Like, they didn't even know how to get it out of there. We continued on. Then we got fucking ambushed. And didn't we get ambushed like right at us, right at our order of march? A compound off to our right. We started taking heavy machine gun fire and RPG fire. So we turn, traverse, fucking commander gives the fire order. We're all fucked up. Fire! Click. Nothing happens.
Oh my God.
Now, in peacetime, the way that our tanks work, they are electrically fired. Now, you have to understand these tanks were designed post-World War II. A lot of the ammunition is very fucking old, so what you get sometimes is a slow-burning fuse. So we'll hit it, it'll burn slow, and in a peacetime, you just maintain the same point of aim for 15 minutes, then you take it out, and the commander walks it to a safe spot, and then engineers blow it up. We're not in fucking Canada, we're not in peacetime. We're in combat. My commander instantly orders me to take this fucking round out of the chamber and put another one in. And I look at him, I go, you do realize what you're asking me. Because if this is a slow burning fuse, we're dead. And he's like, I remember him fucking looking at me and go, breathe fucking loud. Yes, Sergeant. I pulled the round out and I put a new one in. And I looked at that round and I was like, at least we won't feel it. And I said it out loud. At least we won't feel it. Fire! Click. Nothing happened. And you want to fucking hear a sigh of relief? Oh, God. It was the first time ever in my life that when the tank didn't fire, I was happy.
Yeah.
Because it meant to me that it was a mechanical breakdown in the equipment and not, it wasn't
It wasn't a shell. Yeah.
And I wasn't going to die. Right?
Fuck, man.
Then he orders the gunner to coax, switch to the machine gun. Click. Nothing happens. Click. Then we have another machine gun on the turret, and I'm like, I'm going ack, Sarge. He's like, fuck you are. Keep your, because we're taking some serious fire. And like, you know what I mean? I'm fucking a young man, 24 years old, all fired up. Like, we just got blown up. I'm concussed. I wasn't thinking right. I was like, I would legitimately grabbed a hold of this and started firing, and good chance could have been killed. And he was like, no, get your fucking head down. Anyway, call signs in the rear engaged, fucking neutralized the target, and we pushed on. We got back to camp and we were assessed by the medics, and I was bumping into walls. I still bump into walls. And we were bedridden. They just stay on your bunks for the next few days as we pack up and get ready to go home. And then we went home, stopped in Cyprus on the way home, got, a week of just annihilation, which was really good for my brain after getting blown up. And, nobody, and the thing was, nobody gave a shit, man. Nobody checked on me. Nobody. I came home, and so as you're leaving theater, you go through like a meat grinder of doctors. What did you see? What did you do? You know what I mean? Did you any experiences? And you're like, I got fucking blown up. And they're like, hey, go see physio when you get home. And you're like, what?
Fuck. Yeah.
No joke, man.
Jesus Christ.
And I went in, I was like, fuck that. I'm not going to fucking physio. I was like, nah, boom. I went home, and yeah, anyway, so that was the beginning of the end for me. I was engaged to a girl, fucking left her almost, I got home in September. I left her in December. After that was just self fucking destruction. But I was awesome at work. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I was on a fast track of promotion, fucking came home, went on my leadership course, got ready for the next deployment, just trying every single day to keep it together. And I was at this time, and I was single. So, getting fucking blackout drunk on the weekends by myself, showing up to work like I got it all together. And then I went on my leadership course, and then I deployed again in 2010. And my warrant officer, who had ended up with cancer, ended up beating it, came back fucking bigger and badder and stronger. And they were like, you want to go back overseas? And he's like, I have some unfinished business. So they gave him squadron quartermaster, which is the second highest position in the NCO world in a squadron. It's after that, you're the sergeant major, and you're also the acting sergeant major when he goes on leave. And your job is to ensure that the squadron is checked out with, beans, bullets, and everything it needs to fight the war, and fuel, and, just you're the link between the main camp and the fighting. So he brought me over as his 2IC. I got promoted to master corporal. And we went overseas together, and I'll tell you, man, it was awesome. Like, working for that man, 10 months with him in Afghanistan, it was fucking awesome. And this tour was vastly different than my last tour because, like I said, I was still in a combat role, but I was more on the logistics side too. As you know, as you continue to progress in your career, you take on different positions and ticks in the boxes, and it helps you be a better all-around leader. And this again was a senior master corporal's position, and I got it as a junior. Didn't even have my crew commander's course, and I got this position, which it's usually they give it to a master corporal to get his points to bump him into his next promotion. So I was very, very fortunate to have this experience, but also have this wonderful leadership to be able to mentor me and continue on. So, you know, that tour had its own challenges in itself. You know, the camp, I was in CAF for 9 months, dealing with interpreters, making sure that we're getting things out to our guys. And I, you know, started a bit of a network on the main camp. I was able to get, our guys would come in on leave and I'd have a big barbecue for them. And the camp was dry, but I had beer for them. I'd put on a barbecue and I'd have steak and lobster tail for them.
Oh, I bet you were you were loved.
I was that guy that was able to get shit. Because I'll tell you, man, that anything and everything was coming in on that base. It was kind of wild. So, you know, I'd made some friends in the area where the food was coming in. So, you know, give guys something that they're missing and they help you out. So it was awesome. Because knowing what I went through in 2008 and now being that guy to be able to, as my guys would come in on leave, you know, we'd give them a spot to sleep, get them cleaned up, show them the camp, get them a nice meal, and then they'd catch their flight out to the host nation, which was Dubai, and then off on their HLTAs. So it was really nice to have the combat experience and what I went through to be able to be a little more compassionate, to be able to help our guys and facilitate a lot of what they were going through. 2010, it was not the same war as it was in 2008. 2008 wasn't the same war as it was in 2006.
Right.
And then after that, I came home back to my unit, and then I knocked a girl up back home, East Coast. She was a girl that I continuously kept finding myself involved with throughout my entire life. And then eventually I slipped one through the gate and knocked her up. I went to my boss and I was like, hey, you know, or the regiment, I was like, can you guys post me to Gagetown? I got to go home. I got to marry this girl and I got to get my life sorted out. I got a baby on the way. And I didn't realize how fucked up I was at this point. I battled with them back and forth, and they're like, you know what? Yeah, we're going to send you down there, get promoted, do 3 or 4 years, and you're coming back to the unit. I'm like, okay, roger that. So I get posted to the school and I go on paternity leave, and then I come back, and then things started falling the fuck apart for Pat Gordon on an epic scale.
We'll continue this in the next episode of the podcast. Is when all of a sudden things completely start coming apart for you. For everyone who's listened to the Papa Tango Sierra Delta podcast, I thank you very much. Tune in to hear next week the conclusion of Patrick Gordon's story, which is absolutely remarkable, as well as how he's used his experience and done some real amazing good for people in and around the St. John, New Brunswick area, as well as elsewhere. My name is Larry Payton. I have your 6. Please have mine.
And I sing, hey, don't go away. There's so much left to do, so many things I wanna say. And I sing, hey, don't make the change. If it rains every single day, I'll fight to blow it all away.